The Tarot and the Kabbalah are two spiritual traditions that have been linked over the past few centuries. They map out the process of spiritual awakening. The Tarot, in this esoteric context, is much more than a simple parlor trick, but a whole psycho-spiritual map of existence, consciousness itself. In the lecture ahead, you're going to learn all about Tarot and its connections with Kabbalah and other mystical traditions. You'll learn about the Holy Tetragrammaton, the Four Worlds, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, the Sephiroth, and more. But first, you'll be brought through a very important meditation to start to experience these mysteries. The thing is, I can talk all day about these mysteries, but I want you to directly experience them. The meditation is going to help you do that, so make sure not to skip it. The presentation ahead uses a lot of slides to give you a visual aid for all this information. I put all of these slides in over 100 pages of this ebook that you can download totally for free in the description below. Much love, welcome to the real wormhole. So today we're going to be looking at Tarot and Kabbalah and a unique remix of the two. I don't know why I chose to do two huge disciplines in one remix in 1 hour and a half, but here we go. I'm a Capricorn, I'm very ambitious. I have a moon rising Pisces, so, ambitious mysticism, let's do it. My goal, my honest, true goal is enlightenment. I think that is the most practical goal you could have because who doesn't want to end suffering? So if you want to end suffering for yourself or someone else, throw your hands up. Okay, cool, yay, very fun, I love that. I want to tell you that humans have been working at this goal for thousands of years. And this weekend that we've had together, we've had a lot of experiences, we've had a lot of feelings, we've had a lot of shit come up to the surface, we've done a lot of processing, a lot of really brave work that is awesome and super cool. And I want you to know that, when you read mystical literature, it's like humanity has been at this for a long time. People have had fears, anxiety, all types of things. And there are various mystical traditions that have kind of cracked the code on, okay, we can actually end suffering, we can actually attain ultimate bliss. And so in my work, what I do is I curate the information and tools to offer the conditions for what one might consider to be a mystical experience. It's very ambitious, but it works, things happen. So I run the Tarot Mysticism Academy. It's an online school and it's a year-long curriculum that involves tarot reading, mysticism, professional development, and 1,000,001 other things. If you're interested in any of that, you can let me know. But today we're going to be really focused on the mystical aspect of tarot in its connection to Kabbalah and other mystical traditions. So we're gonna have fun. Okay, so you're not gonna learn how to read a spread in this class. I'm gonna tell you that. I have courses and stuff. If we work together for several months, I could get you reading tarot like nobody's business. I could get you to start a whole tarot business successfully. That's the easy part. What we're looking at today is tarot mysticism. And so the big difference is when, let me kind of softly attempt to define mysticism. You really can't define it, but my definition of mysticism is any discipline that is of the highest meta. So we have to define meta. So meta is anything that refers to itself from within itself or outside of itself. So for example, if you were in a movie and you're an actor and you look at the camera and break the fourth wall and refer to yourself as being in a movie, that's meta, okay? Meta equals what is within refers to itself from within itself, okay? But refers to the whole. Mysticism is the highest possible meta of all of reality. So it's consciousness itself referring to itself from within itself. Now, if you feel like there's a paradox there, you're totally right. And that is why mystical literature sounds insane, and why mystics sound insane, and why so much of this material has become esoteric. One of the reasons why it's become esoteric, meaning that it's not meant for everybody, it's meant for a select few. Because it's like, the mystic club is like you have to have that trans-rational experience
to go through the door. That's why they have initiations in so many cultures. It creates something that explodes the mind in varying traditions. So that's what I'm into. I really like that brain melting, ego dissolving, transpersonal experience of oneness. And even when I don't go there, when I'm not trying to, because you can't be there every day. I mean, you can if you're like the Buddha or something, but even if you don't go there, if you don't go into the abyss and have that unitive experience of oceanic boundless bliss of unity with all things, even going there a little bit, I have found has reduced so much of my own suffering and the suffering of my friends, family, and students. So yeah. Any questions before we start?
Sorry, I walked in late. You have slides for these, right?
Yes. So I have over 120 slides. We're not going to go through all of them. It's actually now the workbook for one of my courses. I can send you a version of what I will show you today, if you would like. The cool thing with mysticism is because mysticism is the apprehension of everything, of allness, you could literally go into it from any direction. Every single experience is a portal into the unity of all things. So the starting point is wherever you are. So we're going to start a little in a different place and then kind of explore a little bit of what we did yesterday, but through a different kind of structure. So it'll hit different brains differently. That's another thing about mysticism. Every mystical tradition is different. So the way I speak about mysticism is from my own experience. But if you go to a Zen master, you will literally be doing the opposite of what you do if you go to a Kabbalist, in Qabalah, Jewish mysticism. So they're all different types of stuff. Okay, I'm thinking what we'll do today is we're going to start with a meditation, and I am going to invite you to do this meditation with me. And I want to challenge you. I want you to do the meditation fully, but notice the experience of the meditation as well. So when you come back from it, you can remember what that experience was. And there's going to be 3 very simple but very important phases of this meditation. There's actually going to be 4, but the thing about the 4th one is you can't really talk about it. And you'll see why when we get there, hopefully. But the first 3, I want you to really recognize, okay, this is where I am, this is what I'm aware of. And then when we shift to the next phase, you'll be like, this is what I'm aware of. We'll shift to phase 3. You'll say, okay, this is what I'm aware of. And we'll shift to phase 4, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to prime you a little bit by sharing with you a tendency of somebody's spiritual path, which isn't everybody's spiritual path. This isn't the only one, but a common tendency or pattern when people, and we're all here doing all this spiritual work, doing all this healing, so it may or may not be familiar to you. So one of the things we learn pretty quickly is that we're not our bodies, right? We start to disidentify with our body, and we recognize that we're so much more than our body. We are our mind and our thoughts and our contributions and all the things that happen in here. So that's like a big step for a lot of people. And when we do that, a lot of times things come up to the surface and we work on the inner world as well as the outer, right? We do, whether that's personal development, therapy, goals, like getting our life, like doing that inner work, shadow work, whatever it is. There's that inner chapter of our work. And then there's another point where for many people, especially in mysticism, there is a release of that identification with the mind. So first we release the body, then we release the mind, and we recognize, wait a minute, I'm so much more than my mind. There is a being that is, the mind shows up to this sense of existing, pure existing, consciousness, awareness. And that's a really fun step. And so that's where I'd like us to go today. And so that's where the paradox is, by the way, of the meta-paradox of consciousness referring to itself, of that moment of, oh my goodness, I am, right? So to give you some examples of how this may manifest in various practices, like, when we disidentify from the body and we go into the inner world, We can start to conceptualize ourselves in different ways and have different self-concepts that we work towards. And so we might do like affirmations, like I am loved, I am rich, I am confident, I am all that work that we do. And that's really cool and lovely. And I'm still doing that work, and maybe a lot of us here are doing that work. But there's another level after that where it simplifies itself. And instead of I am something, it's simply I am. And that is a whole nother level. And that's where we're going to start to explore today, because it is that level where, in my experience, mysticism begins. And that's where Kabbalah will lead us. That is where Tarot will lead us. And yeah. So I'd like everyone to get comfortable and close your eyes if you'd like. It's only an invitation. And I'd like everyone to just notice where they are in Bethany 1. At Anahata's purpose. Here we are together in this room. And just now I'd like you to bring your awareness to your body and what you're sensing. So if you're sensing the floor or the chair, the temperature, the skin, the sound of the projector, my voice, and just notice those sensations, and just notice your own awareness of those sensations. And notice how those sensations come and go, but your awareness remains. And notice how your awareness is not your sensations. Now I'd like you to go into the next sort of phase with me, which is I'd like you to become aware of the feelings in your body. So we're going from outside of the body to inside of the body. You can notice any feelings, emotions, what the nervous system is doing, and just become aware of those inner experiences. And notice how those inner experiences are not your awareness. You are simply aware of them. And in this phase, you can also become aware of your thoughts as they come and go. And just become aware of them. And notice how you are not your thoughts, but you are aware of your thoughts. And just anytime the mind goes somewhere, just say, hey, I noticed that. I am aware of that. How cool is that? And what you can do here is you can combine phase 1 and phase 2 so that any sensation, feeling, or thought that comes up, you can simply notice that you are aware of it. And now, for the next 30 seconds to a minute, for every sensation or thought or feeling that passes through your awareness, I want you to ask, what is aware of that? And whatever experience comes through you by asking that question, I want you to ask, what is aware of that? You might get a sensation, you might get an idea, you might get a name, you might get a concept, you might get an inner feeling, you might imagine something, you might rationalize something. But whatever comes up, just simply ask, what is aware of that? And if you choose, I invite you to release and relax yourself into that very simple awareness. That very simple, clean awareness. And whatever shows up in that awareness is the content of the awareness, but again, is not the awareness. And I invite you to work with this mantra now. It's a very simple, it's not even a mantra, it's just being. It's the words, I am. I am. Whatever shows up in front of that, you can release if you would like, and you can return to the very simple, direct experience of being. I am. And truly, there is nothing else to it. I am. No matter who you are, what you're feeling, what you're going through, where you're headed next, what you think you should do or shouldn't do, behind all of that, there is I am. And when you're ready to come back from that, I invite you to find a space an inch or two under your belly button and just imagine a glowing yellow orb, and expand that orb in every direction, up, down, forward, back, right, and left. And don't forget to go downwards and backwards. And come back into your body. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, but there's no rush. Here we are, being. It's very simple now. It's going to get very complicated, so I just want to enjoy this being with everyone. It's not really going to get complicated, but we're going to play with a bunch of ideas about this soon. So I want to share with you what I find to be the most important things ever said from the human race. And in various mystical traditions, there are certain sayings that encapsulate the main message. So if you were to go to a mystic and say, I don't have time to read all these books, I don't have time to meditate, I don't have time to do worship, give me like the summed up in one sentence teaching, it would be these. So in the Vedic tradition, they're called Mahavakyas. And there's 4 main Mahavakyas that are so profound. And what they do is they direct you back into your real self. Remember before when I said mysticism is the highest meta? It's consciousness referring to itself from within itself. Well, that's what these Mahavakyas do. They get you to recognize that the unity of reality that you are. Okay? And the Mahavakyas are amazing, and there's other phrases from other traditions and books and philosophies that also do this. But you will always notice a sort of paradox in this, because it's always transrational. It always goes beyond the mind. So the most popular one is, thou art that. Has anyone heard of that? Thou art that? Throw your hands up if you've heard of that. You are that. Oh, okay. And you So this is the idea that you are that. You are the answer. You're everything. You're the universe. There's nothing you need to get. You're there. You are that. That's Tattvamasi. That's in the Chandogya Upanishad. And in the other Upanishads, you'll see similar huge sayings that essentially are saying that you are the ultimate. You are God. You are the unity of all things. And it's like, in my view, I think the Upanishads are like the highest things ever written of philosophy, of spirituality. They just like, and they are the highest. They're like the highest philosophy of the Vedas, of the sacred texts, the Indian texts of the Vedas, and they're beautiful. They're just so beautiful. They're intense. They take you directly to that ultimate recognition where you are consciousness, referring to yourself from within yourself, and there's nothing else. It's super direct. So these types of sayings, teachings, I call radical ontological affirmations, because they're not personal affirmations. A personal affirmation would be like, I am rich, I am happy, I am secure, I am confident, I have a great relationship. All these things that we are useful, are so useful, because that's how we create our reality, right? You hold it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. So those are useful. But these are radical ontological affirmations. They are the very affirmation of being itself. I am. Simply I am. And the cool thing about I am is it's unfalsifiable. So when you say, I am rich, and then struggle with money, you can say, I am poor. You know, you could go back and forth. You know, you could contradict yourself. That's why people have issues with manifestation, because they're manifesting 2 things at once. But with mysticism, there is no doubt to your existence. And it always pulls you back directly into that existence. And these are the phrases that kind of do that. There's many of them. In Buddhism and Zen, it might be the tathata, the suchness, the thatness of reality. Parmenides has this quote. He's a mystic philosopher, and he channeled this being who said, the only 2 ways of search that can be thought of, the first, namely, that it is. Whatever that ultimate truth is, it is. And that it is impossible for anything not to be. So, and they're kind of like, wait, what are you saying, Parmenides? Wait, what? He's essentially saying, to simplify it, like, reality is, and anything that doesn't exist, so you don't have to worry about it. Everything that is. It's this radical exhalation, this radical relief of, it is. It just is. Here's a fun one from A Course in Miracles. Has anyone worked with A Course in Miracles? Throw your hands up. Yes. Great book, channeled book. It's like non-duality in a Christian skin. It's so cool. The first sentence of the book is, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Here lies the peace of God. What? It's like a record scratch out of all of your trauma. What? Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. So chill the fuck out. Wow. I love it. An al-Haq. From the Gita, I, O Arjuna, I am everything which is and that which is not. Plotinus, the all is universal power of infinite extent and infinite impotency, a God so great that all his parts are infinite. Name any place and he is already there. Plotinus has a bunch of them. Plotinus is my spiritual crush. He's a mystic philosopher, I think 300 CE or so. He started Neoplatonism, which was very influential in a lot of religions. But yeah. The reason why I'm introducing is like, what does this have to do with tarot and Kabbalah? Well, it has everything to do with everything because it is everything. But the reason why I'm introducing, I want us to get comfortable with this idea of simply I am, simply being, simply bringing you back into your own existence. Because the next thing we look at is going to be really fun. Now we're going to get a little bit into Kabbalah. So, first of all, super crude definition of Kabbalah. Kabbalah means receive. It's a Jewish mystical tradition that has been passed down orally, which stems from earlier forms of Jewish mysticism, as well as some other mystical systems, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, Pythagoreanism, and a whole bunch of cool things that were happening and percolating around Hellenism. Oh, good.
We're good.
It is. It is. That is. I think that's going to be the main thing for this class. It is. Or I am. So one of these radical ontological affirmations comes about in the Torah. And Moses says unto God, behold, when I come unto the children of Israel and shall say unto them, the God of your fathers hath sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, what is his name? What shall I say unto them? So Moses is asking God, who are you? What are you? What's your name? He's asking the burning bush. And the burning bush, God says unto Moses, I am that I am. So write that one down. I am that I am. That's going to be the radical ontological affirmation that we're going to be exploring today. And I also call them mystical mic drops because, like, you just drop the mic and it's, that's it. That's it. I am that I am. Okay. So we have to explore I am that I am. And what we're going to learn today is that the tarot, Kabbalah, the tree of life, all the fun things that we may or may not get into, hopefully we'll get into them, are always an extension of the simple I am that I am. So if I could work with you and I could bring you to the astral and I could bring you to this sphere and this planet, we can do all sorts of magical work that's exciting and cool and superstitious and badass and, impressive stuff. But the most impressive thing is this I am that I am. And it's where all of this is going to lead to. Okay. So the Tetragrammaton is a name of God that is unpronounceable. Because if God is everything and all pervasive, you can't name God. You can't say, oh, that's God, because God includes the pointer. God includes the namer as well. Going back into the paradox, it's completely nameless. So YHVH is called the Holy Tetragrammaton and is used as a name of God, or is a name of God but is never pronounced. Traditionally, it would just be pronounced Adonai, which means Lord. But YHVH, so we have Yod, He, Vav, and He, is not only the name of God, but because it is the name of God, it is also the name of all that is, all of creation. And it is also a formula of the creative process that is the universe and is you, and is everything that you do and create, runs through this really cool formula. Now, YHVH, Yod-He-Vav-He, is derived from the Hebrew word meaning to be. So we have the phrase I am that I am, which God answers Moses. And then we have the name YHVH, which is pronounced Yahweh or Jehovah in various, or pronounced Vika what? Just because it's a record scratch. I like the record scratch pronunciation because it's literally like the universe record scratching itself into the remix of itself, which is what we're doing here. So this record scratch, YHVH, comes out of this root to be. So we're already back into this very simple, pure being. Pure I am. Not I am happy, not I am enlightened, not I am rich. I am. Doesn't that just feel nice? It doesn't feel like anything. It just is, you know? You don't have to prove it to yourself. That's what I love about this. Okay. I am, to be, is the isness of the universe. The isness is the highest spiritual reality, uncompromised by any idea, name, form, or function. It is not a thing. It is that through which all things are. If something is, it is, right? No thing can exist if it is not. So in this level of work, what I'm interested in, whether through Kabbalah, Tarot, non-duality, or whatever my next hyperfixation will be, is the isness. Okay, so all of these mystical mic drops are equations or expressions of this isness. And there's various ways to do this. So as above, so below is who's heard of as above, so below? Throw your hands up. Oh yeah, that's a good one. We love Dr. Hermes Trismegistus up in here. Yes, so that phrase comes from the Emerald Tablet, which was like potentially written by Hermes Trismegistus. It's considered hermetic, but it's not really hermetic, but it's kind of grouped in that whole hermetic umbrella. Hermeticism is a soteriological mystical tradition from Greco-Egyptian early century stuff, and that's where it comes from. But as above, so below is doing the same thing as all these other phrases, which is recognizing that what you are below is what's happening above. Now there's an astrological aspect to it, and then there's a mystical aspect to it. They're different, but I'm not going to go into that. You had a question?
Do you think they were aliens?
Do I, Hermes? Was Hermes Trismegistus an alien? Potentially, yeah. Scholarship kind of doesn't necessarily agree that he actually existed. They think it was a school of people writing under his name through what's called pseudepigrapha. So if you wanted to get your shit published back in Hellenism, you would just write under a popular name. Of course, nowadays it's all about me. It's all about my name. So we copy other people's content and write under our own name. But so yeah, so there's a little, yeah. So the Thoth Hermes archetype, Thoth of the Egyptians and Hermes of the Greeks fused into Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus. And then there's like, yeah, so a lot of things were written under that name, including the Corpus Hermeticum and various fragments and like the Stobaeus and a bunch of other things. And there's like a couple collections of those. Then there's some more New Age stuff that is written under Hermes that's different. Like there's, I don't know who wrote it, but he channeled it, and that's like a different thing. That's in the past couple hundred years or so. But they could be the same. I'm not going to say like they're not. They could be the same alien, could be the same entity. Like, why not? Like, totally. So the Tetragrammaton is the formula of creation and will be the formula of, is actually the formula of the meditation that we did. Here's our Tetragrammaton. We have Yod, He, Vav, and He. And each of those letters represents one of four worlds. And in Kabbalah, these four worlds act as emanations from source. So if you think about if you think of it like a fountain, divine energy starts all the way above in this perfect divine nothingness and emanates or pours or expands or extends or reflects itself downwards into manifestation, into us, into what we are literally experiencing now. So as above, so below. What I brought you guys on through that meditation was going upwards. So we started with the room. So let's go through these quick ideas. We have, I'm actually going to start on the bottom first. So we have green, which is the physical world. So I started with where you are in space, your body, and your sensations. So in a way, you might connect that to the Kabbalistic world of Asaya, which is the world of action. This is where stuff knocks into stuff to create our life and our physical experience, right? Now, in that meditation, I brought you upwards by coming into your body, into your feelings, and into your thoughts. That's loosely connected to Yetzirah. Yetzirah is the blueprint of the universe. And the part of the soul that's connected to this is called the nefesh, which is like the animal soul, the body. The part of the soul connected to here is the ruach, which is the intellect, the mind. So I brought you from body to mind, and we noticed that our thoughts were kind of coming through us and our feelings were coming through us. That is sort of related to Yetzirah, the formative world. Now, if you were to go higher, which we just started to go a little bit when I said to come to the I am, so not the thoughts, not the physical sensations, not the feelings, not the thoughts. When you keep going upwards, you eventually come to this place of simply being, simply I am. And that is Bria. And Bria is the creative world in Kabbalah. And it's the part of the soul called the neshama, though the neshama might not quite fit neshama, kia kind of area, is that sense of, oh, I am, I exist. It's this pure kind of life force being, okay? So this is where I wanted to bring everyone to, but there's another world that when you release that place of I am, you go into something completely different. But you can't talk about that world. And the reason why you can't talk about it is because anything you say about it will be a lie. So there is the I am, but if there is an I am, there is a you, yes? And if there is an I am, there is something that, who is the I am, right? Who is the I am there? So when you go up even farther, you dissolve that, and then you go into Atziluth, which is the archetypal world, the world of emanation. Now, this is connected to ideas of nearness. So at this level of the cosmos or of spiritual ascent, there really is it's even beyond I am. It's like complete absorption into God, into the universe, into unity.
Is that where you say we're looking at meta because it's your awareness aware of its awareness?
Great question. Is that where we're looking at meta? Meta would be here.
Okay.
And so in mysticism, this is already stretching concepts and ideas because we have a paradox here. The mind can barely survive here. This is actually where the mind is going to start breaking down, because if the mind works with concepts, and concepts are always dual, names are always dual, they refer to something. So after this, there's no mind. Gina, you're going to have your hand up?
I don't know how to pronounce the top row that we don't talk about.
Atziluth,
Okay.
or Atziluth.
Is that how, like, in Taoism, in, like, the Tao, nothing is written about it because you only experience it?
Yes. Yeah, exactly like the Tao. So the Tao that is named, is not the Tao. The Tao that can be spoken of is not the Tao. Exactly that. Exactly that.
Almost something you can experience.
Yeah. And even that experience, I would say, is here. Because if you experience, there's something you're experiencing. You're experiencing existence, I am. Up here, there's not even experience. Because for an experience to happen, there has to be a break from that experience for that experience to even be sensed or experienced, right? Mm-hmm.
That highest realm that reminds me of the Tibetan concept of the clear light reality, where it's like when I've tried to imagine, which is impossible to imagine, like if you're like looking through a window almost that is like perfectly clear, and then you're going to imagine something behind it, whether you're imagining just white
Yeah.
or like black, but like to imagine like looking through a perfectly clear window and behind it is just clear.
Yeah. Yeah. The clear light of the void. Yes, exactly. I'm glad you you have that connection, because, when people get, it's so, like, this is so outside of experience itself, it's so cool.
I'm trying. If I feel I'm confused, but I want to try. I feel like we're supposed to be confused.
Yes.
If you're up here at the top, I guess I'm trying to understand when you're talking about the window. If you're seeing like this clarity, by being aware of that clarity, doesn't that bring you back down again?
Yes.
So then what is it? I get it.
What is it? To answer your question, I'm glad that you asked. That's a great question. What is it? It's nothing.
Do you just melt
no.
there? I don't understand.
So it's not something that like I can be like, I can tell you what it is. It would always be a lie. But what I use to describe what's up here is no space thing. Not because it's nothingness like a void, but because anything that you say that it is, it won't be that. Because it's beyond duality. And I want everyone to know that we don't have to hang out up here. I hang out mostly here. So like I love ideas. So this is like really fun for me. I'll pop up in here in meditation twice a day, but even that is, I can only do so much. So it's like, this is cool, but I'm really glad that you're all coming with me on this journey and you're asking that question, because I think you're starting to see like, oh wait, we actually can't conceptualize that. And this is really important because so much of religion has been an attempt to conceptualize that. And look what it's freaking done. So it's really important.
I feel like that is something that we can only ever experience when we die.
Yeah, something that you can only experience when you die. I would say maybe yes. Now, a mystic is looking to kind of cheat that and find the cheat codes of the universe to get a sneak preview.
I was gonna say that's exactly what we're mostly almost always in a saya, for the most part, unless you're going into meditation, you're doing things to get to the absolute state, then it's like there's different things because all that stuff is kind of happening at once on a different wavelength, forming things, creating things subconsciously, but to actually experience those things is a completely different thing than actually when it's kind of always happening, but to actually consciously try and remember a time from meditation or something, try and remember a time from, I would think that maybe someone that had a near-death experience or someone that had a really deep psychedelic experience could have touched absolute, but that's the only time ever a normal person would probably get there. That's the way I would explain it maybe.
Yeah, so you're right. It's not common to have conscious experience of any of this. That's what mysticism is for. Right. And I will also say, you said it is always happening. This is always there. So the gag is that even though we don't have conscious experiences of a lot of this or this, there's nothing but this. And we are this, ultimately, when you break it down. When you remove the skin of the material world, of we're bodies in a room, and then you say, oh my God, we're just really a bunch of ideas. And then you turn that up, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not just my ideas, I'm just a bunch of awareness. And then you turn that up, and it's like there's just the isness, and then you keep going. So, yeah.
I'm just trying to understand the different levels. Is this kind of in terms of the different dimensions, how people talk about the fifth dimension or fourth dimension? Is that kind of how it's, or is this completely different?
It's different because it's actually what this is a wider scope, and the dimensions can be within this. And there is something on the Tree of Life that does talk about 5 dimensions and a hypercube and really cool things. And I can show you how a whole life is just the equivalent of one 2D slice of a 3D thing. A whole life is like a 4D slice of a 5D reality. We can go there, but that's a little bit of a different thing. Yeah. But it's related. You'll find some cool stuff there.
I wanted to say, during that meditation at the beginning, I visualized, as I was asking, when I notice my awareness of my awareness, and it's like, what is aware of this? I noticed, like, I would climb up one rung of a ladder, and then it's like, okay, so what's aware of that? And then I would climb up another rung of the ladder, and it was like, I could see myself, like, climbing the ladder, and it was like, so what is aware of this me? Okay, what is that? And then it's like, what is aware of me? And then it's like, I couldn't come up with the words after a certain point. It was like, there's no point trying to
Yes.
come up with the words there.
Yeah, so when you keep asking, what is aware of that, there will eventually be no words, and that's really good. And if you keep doing that, you'll go all the way up.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand this by drawing a parallel, if that's okay, to yogic philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm just like in the yamas of yogic philosophy, you have your interaction with the outer world, and then you have the niyamas, which is your inner world. And then I'm remembering this like form of meditation is like ultimate enlightenment. Say you're meditating to try to become a mountain, like you want to merge with a mountain. Anybody who says they did merge with the mountain did not, because they would not remember being the mountain when they came back to themselves, because as the mountain they were just the mountain. So anyone who like claims to do it did not do it, basically, or are just assuming that they did. Is that a kind of similar parallel? Because like once you get to the top of awareness.
Yeah, so that I could see that, yeah, because that's what like a Zen master would do, because there's no, that's the whole the non-philosophy of Zen would be that, like you can't, yeah, so yeah, totally, there is that. And there's some parallels there too, like through like the Sankhya philosophy, which is what yoga hangs out with, is like Purusha is consciousness and Prakriti is nature. But the difference here is Purusha and Prakriti are this marriage. Prakriti in yoga philosophy is like the nature of and the properties and all that, and consciousness is what is aware of that. In this system, Purusha and Prakriti would have their dance here, because there is a created thing that they can have to each other. Prakriti is the thing to Purusha, but then up here, they cancel each other out. So this would be the samadhi. Yeah,
Thank you.
Totally.
Helped a lot.
I can show you this really geeky, I don't have yoga on it yet, or Sankhya, but I have some other things. So I've pulled together the Kabbalistic tree of life. By the way, this is what we might get into. This is so everything that I just taught you was like the four worlds, but those four worlds of emanation, from nothing into something, from the ultimate truth into matter, spirit to matter, above to below, is elaborated upon through the Kabbalistic tree of life, which gives us 10 sephirot, so 10 spheres, 10 containers. So instead of four worlds, we're going to explore 10 containers that give us more detail of how the source, God, Brahman, whatever you want to call it, created everything, and even our experience. So that's the Kabbalistic tree of life. Plotinus has this really sexy four-circle hypostases system called, some people call it the Great Chain of Being. Then we have some Upanishads here, Brahman and the causal body, subtle body, gross body. The koshas are popular. I've heard that a lot this weekend. So the bliss body up here, the knowledge body, Vijnanamaya kosha, the mental sheath, the mental body, Manomaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, the energy body, and the physical body down here. So that might be another entrance point into this. We got a physical body, underlying that is an energy body, underlying that is a mental body, underlying that is that sense of I am, that knowledge, right, that we had, that self-knowledge, I exist. That's about right here. Then there's the Anandamaya kosha, which really shouldn't be there. It should be around here. But then above that would be Brahman, or specifically Nirguna Brahman, the nothingness. The language that I use is not traditional always for any of these, just since I'm kind of explaining a lot of concepts and bringing them together. So I might not use the right words here and there, but just kind of a little disclaimer. We got some Tantra, some notes, and some other stuff. But yeah, it's all connected.
Take a moment to reflect on the lecture so far and put in the comments if you have any questions. Also, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you're alerted when I release future lectures like this. All right, let's keep going.
You know what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through the 10 Sephirot on the Tree of Life, like super quick, and to give you a very basic idea of like what they are. And then if we have time, I'm going to travel up the Tree of Life through the major arcana, because I know yesterday we did the minor arcana super fast. Today we will maybe explore the major arcana. But I think just know that like all of this stuff comes out of that sense of I am. That's the big takeaway. Okay. And what I said yesterday that I'll repeat is, you know, I teach tarot reading. I can get you reading tarot, like I can get you a whole professional practice in like a year, you know, but tarot reading is just the beginning. And this is what this is what I'm teaching more about. When you understand tarot in its relationship to Kabbalah and all these mystical traditions, it does a whole lot more fun stuff. Okay, so, yep, that's my sign, yeah. I have my first class of this whole course is tomorrow, so I'm like, just gonna make sure. Yeah, so, so just because this is what we've been using, I'm just gonna use this Tree of Life to explain it. So remember what I said, that the Tree of Life and all of these systems, honestly all of mysticism is how do we get back to the ultimate truth, the ultimate unity, God, Source, Brahman, whatever you want to call it. And all of these are maps to get there. And these maps are not all the same, and they involve different practices and different contexts and all different types of things. But most mystical traditions have some sort of map, especially in the kind of Hellenistic-born stuff, which a lot of Kabbalah comes from, Neoplatonism and all this fun stuff. Honestly, it's all footnotes to Plato, probably, who probably wasn't even a mystic, by the way. He just had a bunch of cool ideas. Anyway, so the Tree of Life, each of these spheres is a container of divine energy. Divine energy pours from the first sphere called Keter, which comes right from the source, the monad, the Godhead, and pours all the way downwards into Malkuth, which is our physical existence here. So this is important to us because this shows us our direct relationship to the whole, right? And this is going to show us how we can realize that connection and end our suffering. Cool? So the Tetragrammaton that I introduced you, YHVH, I am that I am, that is placed on the Tree of Life in this way. The Yod, the first letter, is connected to the second sphere, Chokmah. The second letter, He, is connected to the third sphere, Binah. The third letter, Vav, is connected to the sixth sphere, Tiphareth. And the last letter, He final, is connected to the last sphere, Malkuth. So the Tree of Life is an extension of the Tetragrammaton, which is to say that the Tree of Life, being the whole bridge into this physical reality, is all in itself an extension of God, the source, the ultimate reality, you know, all that, which is pretty freaking cool. So again, all mysticism essentially points to the fact that you are nothing but God and you have nothing to worry about. But we're not going to believe that, right? So there's all of these maps to help us recognize that. And this is, again, just one of them. So you can imagine it like God, the source, the divine, pours itself. I use the word consciousness. I feel like it's palatable. So consciousness pours itself into into the first vessel. It overflows, pours itself into the second vessel. It overflows, pours itself into the third vessel. It overflows, pours itself into 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Every one of these vessels gives reality a kind of a certain influence. And it is because of these 10 vessels that we are experiencing what we are in these bodies, separate and having a good time. This is the most important one because this is where we're at and this is where the fun happens. Look how much fun we're having. So that is how the universe came out to be in this system. That's how creation is. Remember, YHVH, the Holy Tetragrammaton, is a formula of creation. And that formula of creation is the reverse of the meditation we did. So we did physical body, we went to mental kind of inner body, inner world, and then we went to that sense of I am, and then there's a layer after that. If you reverse that, you get the creation of the universe. You go from nothingness to this very subtle sense of I am, to this formative world of concepts and ideas, all the way into the manifest world. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do with you is I'm going to bring you back up by going through each of these Sephirot. Do you have a question?
Yeah, and if it's too off the rails, you can tell me now. Is there a provided reasoning for why consciousness would want to do that?
Is there a provided reasoning for why consciousness would want to do that? I love your question. It's such a good question. I had somebody else ask a similar question. The way he worded it was, I'm not going to go into that, but I had a similar question the other day, and it's very important. And the answer to that question is in here. And so it's unknowable, but to give you, I'll quote my favorite line right now. It's in the Mandukya Upanishad Karika by Gaudapada. I can send you this stuff. Gaudapada started the Advaita Vedanta tradition. He answers that question, and he goes through a bunch of philosophies and cuts them down. And he says, he's very radical. He's very cool. This is like a Middle Ages Vedantin monk, and he's going through all these philosophies. People say, oh, like the reason the universe exists is because God created it. He's like, no. Reason the universe exists is because God wanted to express itself. He says, no. Reason the universe exists is because God is playing. He says, no. And then he says, the universe, all of this, why does consciousness do this? There is no universe. This is the very nature of consciousness. There's no you, there's just being. So he goes right to the top. Now, there's different paradigms for this, and there's many answers. So if you go into like Tantra, for example, which I have somewhere, you might have the idea of Leela, which is play. So there's many answers that work in different paradigms. But I think the highest, for me, just because I love non-duality, the highest answer would be there is no creation. There's just the isness. But yeah. Yeah. But another answer to that may be, if we were to go through this tree of life here, all this stuff I'm zooming through is Lurianic Kabbalah that I'm not going to go into, but if you're ever in a course with me, maybe we'll get into all this fun stuff. So normally I teach the tree of life in its going downwards, which would create the universe. But I'm going to teach it going upwards to show how a mystic may travel it, or if you're into like high magic, how a high magician might go up the tree. So the first, excuse me, the last Sephira is Malkuth. And this is where we are. And each Sephira has a shit ton of correspondences. So if you are a magic user, if you're like, a witch, you might have come across some of these things. In magic, we love our correspondences. The general idea is that different things hold sympathies with other things. So the color red, for example, is related to Mars, maybe because Mars is red. And that's also related to anger, because when we get angry, sometimes we get a little red. So we create these sympathies with things and these links of experiences to plants, to gemstones, to planets, to God names and angels and all types of shit. You can take this stuff, you can summon demons, you can summon angels, you can heal your so many cool things. I'm not going to get into all of those. I get into them more in some of my other courses, but just know that if you notice that kind of sound, so you notice that sounds like this. Yes, you're right. There are correspondences, and that's happy to the mind, I feel like the cool thing about this is for me, I'm very much an overthinker, so it's kind of like a fidget spinner for your mind. It get really Kabbalah, Tarot, it gives you something to overthink about, but it's kind of a little bit more functional than I don't know, all those anxious thoughts. So this is where we begin in Malkuth, and this is where everything happens. This is the present moment right here. And it's connected in the tarot to the tens and also the pages and the princesses. And the tens are like this ending moment between, like, so the 10 of Wands is like, all the tens are an overflow in the tarot. They're an excess. 10 of Wands is excess of work. 10 of Cups is excess of love, which starts a family. 10 of Swords is excess of ego, which is death, by the way. Because when ego overflows, what it must face is its own death. A whole nother doctrine, we're not going to get into that. 10 of Pentacles, the overflow of earth and money is business, is civilization. So Malkuth is really the overflow of the divine energy, which is what we are receiving. And so that's Malkuth. Now, this is also the physical body. So when we travel up from Malkuth to the next Sephira, Yesod, we're going into the astral world. So Yesod translates to foundation. Malkuth is kingship or kingdom. 9 is Yesod. It's the second to the last Sephira. So when we go up here, when I asked you guys to go in your body and feel what you were feeling, that's a little bit of the astral world, you might say, is those subtle feelings, a little bit like the nervous system, the subconscious, the dream world. It's a little bit there. This is the autonomic nervous system, any kind of astral work. This is like the subtle blueprint of the universe a little bit. This is where all of our images and imaginations come from. And it's loosely connected to the 9s in the tarot. And the 9s show varying ways that the subconscious works for you in different contexts. Yeah. So then we have Hod. Hod is the thoughts. So remember when I said in the meditation, feel your feelings, like notice the experience of your feelings, become aware of that. And then I said, notice your thoughts, watch them come and go. So 8 is Hod. This is our thought world. This is connected to anything mercurial, like Hermes, Thoth, communication, transportation. And Hod is connected to the 8s of the tarot. And they all have something related to intellect or communication or thinking or transportation in some way. Each one I could I could spend an hour on each of these cards and we can draw all the connections, but 7 is Netzach. So 7 is back to kind of like the feelings again, but this is more emotions. It's also a little bit of like drive and value, kind of like what you value and what you're going after. So it's kind of like that a little bit of that will to do something. The will that brought you to this class, that brought you to Anahata's purpose, is that 7. 7 is Netzach, connected to Venus, and it's mostly emotions and drive. And the way I look at it is like the 7. The 7 being Netzach is your like what do you want? The 8 is Hod, which is how are you going to get it? Your thoughts. You're going to think about, well, what am I going to do? When you have the will and the how, that comes together to inform the subconscious mind to take action, and the physical action is Malkuth. So all this stuff is like, you can see it in the way I teach this stuff. Some people teach this stuff and they're like talking about all types of crazy shit that I'm like, I'm never going to experience that. All this stuff you can experience in your daily life because it's all you. It's all the creative process. It's actually not that mystical when you look at it. It's just reality, which is really fun. So this is like your drive. And all of the 7s in the tarot show some sense of drive or willpower for or against something in their varying contexts. So just a quick, for anyone that doesn't play with tarot, each of these, there's 4 suits. There's Wands, Cups, Swords, and Pentacles. And each suit is an element, and that element will give it more context in different areas of life. But we're not focusing on the elements today. We're focusing on the Sephira. So that's 7. So 6 is a really cool thing because 6 is Tiphareth. And Tiphareth is the very center of the tree. So when we let go of all of our emotions and all of so we let go of the body down here, then up here we let go of the feelings and some of the subconscious stuff, we let go of our thoughts and our feelings, we arrive here. And this is starting to bring us into that, one could argue this is the place of the intellect of the I amness, but it's really the self-concept. It's the place where you know you are a self. That pure ability to say, I am Joe, is Tiphareth, right? I am Joe. Not like I am Joe and I'm hungry, or I'm Joe and I'm scared, or I'm Joe and I'm happy. Just, oh, I'm Joe. I'm who I am. is 6. It's a very high, it's right at the center of the tree of life. And this Sephira is really where, because it's at the center, it is the place where the highest of the high meets the lowest of the low. And so you'll notice in the tarot, in every card, there's somebody above and somebody below. In every card, someone is helping someone else out. And so that is why the 6s in Tiphareth is connected to all the ascended masters, all the healers, all the helpers. It's where high energy meets low energy. So that's why we got, by the way, all of these, I made this presentation to include various symbols, but we have Jesus and Buddha and Horus, and a lot of solar deities exist here. By the way, if you like astrology, Malkuth is the earth, Yesod is the moon, Hod is Mercury, Netzach is Venus, Tiphareth is the sun, and it's going to keep going from there. So Tiphareth is, in ceremonial magic, this is like the most important place to get to first. This is where your higher self exists. This is where you might say your guides exist or your holy guardian angel. It's a really good place to be. Club Tiphareth is where it's at. So now if you want to go even further from here in your spiritual, mystical, magical process, if you want to hopscotch even further up into the all, you would go through Gevurah. And Gevurah is not a fun place at all, because Gevurah is the severity of the universe. And this is where your ego starts to break down, because there's still ego in 6, right? Like Buddha had to have an ego to teach. Christ had to have an ego to teach. They had to have a sense of self so that they communicate. The ego is the very thing, like the sun, that creates a gravitational center for all your experience. Just like the sun creates a gravitational center for the solar system, ego creates a gravitational center to organize your own experience. Without the ego, you wouldn't be. So there's an ego here, even though it's purified. It starts to break down in Gevurah. Gevurah is severity. This is the struggling aspect of the universe, the intense aspect of the universe to change and to challenge you. So you'll notice that all the 5s in the tarot have a major challenge, whether through it's a material challenge in the 5 of Pentacles, a social competition challenge in 5 of Swords, emotional challenge, or a creative difference, battle, whatever the challenge is. 5s just suck. And I know there's no tarot card that is good or bad because they're all neutral, but some cards just suck.
What's the astrological?
Astrological, yeah, is Mars, right? God of war. God of war and destruction and all of that. But also Mars is the planet of sexual attraction. And so there's a destruction in orgasm, right? There's a moment of ego death and orgasm. Just another fun thing because that's going to connect to other ideas of the sacred marriage and the whole tree. The whole tree of life, by the way, is a map of the sacred marriage between subject and object. So for yoga, for example, yoga is union between the two. Ultimately, we want to get to that samadhi place where the subject and the object are destroyed cancel each other out. And then we realize in samadhi, oh my God, we don't realize anything because we can't say it, but there's that enlightenment right there. So these are like, in a way, it's very similar to yoga. It's just a different skin, different words, different concepts to bring you to the same place. Now, 4, Chesed is a really nice place. So we're going to take a break from Gevurah. If Gevurah is severity, 4, Chesed is mercy. So this is the ability of the, what's that?
Can you bring it down a little further so I can spell it?
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm. So mercy is the merciful aspect of God. All these, by the way, if you go traditionally, they're like aspects of God. It gets very epic. So in some of the earlier forms of Jewish mysticism, you had these like Merkaba mystics like traveling. It sounds kind of like a Diablo game. If you ever play Diablo, they like travel and like into these labyrinths and get these codes and meet these angels, and eventually the idea is they meet God and then they measure God. They measure the different lengths of God's appendages, and from all of that and Gnosticism and other influences, we get this, which is essentially measuring these or quantifying or attempting to understand these aspects of the all, of unity of God, and in doing so ourselves, so that we can climb up. But so Chesed is mercy and is like the ability of God, the universe, to say yes to everything, whereas Gevurah is saying no, severity. So all the cards in the tarot that are number 4 are very merciful. They're very chill. They're very stable. They're not disruptive. They're chill. They're relaxed. A lot of people think 4 of Swords is a coffin. It's actually a night vigil ritual. So this knight is in a deep state of meditation, of rest before he goes into conflict. Mm-hmm.
I noticed that the Four of Swords is like the only card in the Suit of Swords that I dislike pulling. When I'm like, because it's like the only one that doesn't seem completely miserable.
Yeah, totally. And the Suit of Swords is miserable because in remember the Tetragrammaton that I showed you, YHVH? The Suit of Swords is the Vav. And the Vav is the channel between the first He and the last He. So what the Vav does is it takes the offering of God, the grace of God. Grace of God is in the Yod, the seed of the universe, the apostrophe, the very source pattern of the entire Hebrew alphabet is that one Yod. The first He takes that seed energy and offers it to us. And the way that offering gets to us is through the Vav. So it has to travel like a distance to get to where our minds can understand it. Vav is the element of air and is the element of the mind and the ego, which we know is limited, right? So in the whole Suit of Swords, what we are faced with is the very limitations of the mind to understand the ultimate reality. And those very limitations of the mind is our fear of death. So it's the ego that says, oh my God, somebody died. Oh my God, I'm born. What's going to happen? I'm feeling this way. I'm this. It's the ego that goes through that. Consciousness doesn't give a shit. Consciousness just is. Remember, it's the isness. But the ego in the Suit of Swords is what's head tripping and overthinking and over-conceptualizing. It's how we, as the latest update to planet Earth, are dealing with these newly updated frontal cortexes that we simply just can't handle all the time. But we're doing our best, right? So yeah, I'm really glad you said that because it is a really tough suit. But guess what? A lot of people that come to tarot readings are having a tough time in their minds. So the Suit of Swords is very common to pull in tarot because of the very virtue of needing the consultation. There's a fear, there's a mental fear or something. But that's why in the meditation you always go back to, oh, I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my mind. So in Binah, we are going into, so Binah, I look at it as the true sense of existing, I am, in a way, but that's not always traditionally connected to Binah. The biggest thing with Binah is understanding, but understanding requires something to understand. So when you say I am, you understand your own existence. It's a very profound place. Binah is connected to Saturn. By the way, Chesed is connected to Jupiter. Binah is connected to Saturn, and Saturn is all about limitation and form. So Saturn was classically the farthest planet, and so it symbolized the farthest reach of something. And because of that, it symbolizes the edges and the form of something. So if you took my non-duality class, when I talk about edges, what I'm really talking about is Saturn. And there's a lot of really interesting conspiracy theory, occult stuff, that if you look into it, a lot of religions are really worshiping Saturn because they're worshiping this creator sort of deity, but not, but this thing that has clear limitation. It's, I don't know, it's a bunch of crazy stuff. I don't want to scare you away with that. But Saturn's also really cool. And so in a way, Saturn is anything that creates form. And so that it's so subtle though. Form and diversity. It's the entrance of duality, really. It's duality becoming into more diversity. So all these cards have a sense of differentiation and either distance or multiplicity or yeah. So in the Three of Swords, for example, a popular card, we love the Three of Swords, right? Yes. Three of Swords, our famous Three of Swords, is the understanding of the ego. And the true understanding of the ego is mourning, is sorrow, because it's that part of you that says somebody's gone now. But that's really part of that is it's the first person perspective that says something is gone from me, but it's not real. That's Saturn coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to superimpose this limitation, this ending to you, right? But luckily we can keep moving forward to Chokmah. So if 3 is formed, 3 is also connected to the feminine. Anything feminine deity, Isis, Shakti, this would be Prakriti in the yogic system potentially. So there's all these associations with Binah, the supernal mother, the Ima, the great sea, all this fun stuff. Binah, by the way, remember, is the second letter, is He primal of the sacred name. So maybe I'll go into that in a little bit, I don't know. What's that? So I'll show you that it's a little different, but yes, it's very related. The Empress on the Tree of Life is not a Sephira, but is a path that leads to, so the Empress leads to Binah from Chokmah. So as you actually asked that at the, I don't know who asked, I'm kind of like, okay, thanks. The Empress leads to Binah from Chokmah. And Binah is the feminine form, and it makes sense because females are who give birth, right, create form, and the traditional male participation in the procreative act is not as visible, right? So 3, Binah, is the visible, is the form, whereas 2, Chokmah, is the force. And so the Empress draws out the energy from Chokmah, the sacred masculine, into Binah, the sacred feminine. So Chokmah is the sacred masculine and translates to wisdom. And the best way to understand this is like it is the very will of the universe. Will of the universe. Or the logos, or the shaping, shaping power, the sort of intelligence that's running the show. And so, so this is the Yod of the sacred name of God, the very first letter. And remember how I said that first letter, or Yahweh, YHVH, was kind of like the record scratch of the universe remixing itself into existence? Well, if you take a record and you scratch it one way, that's the Yod, and if you scratch it the other way, that's the He, that's the second letter. So it's that rhythm that just begins, and that rhythm that is established between Yod, which is the initial force, and He, which is the initial form, creates the subject and object that will literally and is literally you right now. The ability of you to see me as not you, but having this fun class and dance together that we're doing, that's the Yod and the He. That's the subject and the object, if you want to connect it to like yogic traditions and stuff. Now there's one more step. The Chokmah is connected to the 2s in the tarot, and all the Chokmah in the 2 has to do with directionality and movement towards something. In each card, it kind of tells that story in a different way. And then the last thing is the Yod the Chokmah, if we go even farther, we'll get to Keter, which is the monad, which is the very beginning of all things, the very unity of everything, which can't be will. It's totally will for what? There's total unity. It's all there. So this is the Godhead. This is Keter. Keter translates to crown. And the idea here is the crown sits on top of the head. And why is it called crown? Is because being on top of the head, it is above the brain, it is above the mind, it is supra-rational. Which brings us back to that first thing that I said, that mysticism is a meta-discipline that goes beyond the mind. It is transrational and it cannot be, spoken of. So all of the cards associated with Keter are the 4 aces. And so in the tarot, the aces are opportunities for the element, but they are not the element. So they are only ever opportunities to work with something. A lot of people will say these are like gifts from God, God's hand coming in and offering you an element to work with, which is cool. But yeah, and then that's Keter. So, any questions before I don't know, go into maybe some majors? Yeah.
Oh, I was actually just going to ask about the majors.
Okay, cool. I'll go into the majors in just a minute. Do we have any questions about the minors and the Sephirot and the Tree of Life?
Does the
Da'at, yeah.
Does that have any connection to the tarot as well?
Not so explicitly. So Da'at is this hidden Sephira, and this is my issue with Da'at. It's the 11th Sephira that doesn't really exist. And the oldest text that taught that the word Sephira was introduced by a text called the Sefer Yetzirah. I'm sorry. The word Sephira was introduced by Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, which was one of the earliest texts that may have started Kabbalah. It's like old, anywhere from 300 CE to 6, 7, 800 CE, who knows. But it's an old one, and it doesn't talk about the 11th Sephira. So that, I think, was added later for some reason. It explicitly says there's only 10 Sephirot. But I will say that in my work with Da'at, Da'at translates to knowledge. To me, this is the knowledge that is exchanged for going below or above. So if we're down here, so there's an abyss right here. And the abyss is where you are really, truly, completely annihilated. Your ego is completely destroyed. That's the dissolution happens here. So if we were to know Binah, we would have to sacrifice the knowledge of our life and everything that we are, right? We'd have to sacrifice the knowledge of this room to go up to Binah. It's a trade, you know? We can choose it. But if we're in Binah or Chokmah or wherever up here, and we're in that unitive, blissful place, you know, uniting with God, then we can, to come down here, we have to sacrifice that knowledge to know everything that is down here. So it's like you can have one knowledge or the other kind of thing. That's how I've interpreted it, at least. But yeah, any other questions before we explore like maybe a couple majors? Yep.
Like on each level of is each separate kind of has like a duality in itself in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has like each separate is like a whole thing, like you know, a whole spectrum of. It's just like there's like different levels to each one of them because of the different things that are kind of overlaying on themselves.
Yes, so so two things. There is the four worlds have been superimposed on the Hermetic tree of life in this way. So we have Asaya in Malkuth, we have Yetzirah as these 6 Sephira. This is called the hexad, and this is why you see the Star of David, the hexagram, is a symbol of above and below. The triangle above, triangle below, as above, so below. That is because this is where as above meets the below. It's right in the center. And then we have the creative world in Binah, and then Atziluth, the archetypal world in the first 2 Sephira. So that's one way we can superimpose the four worlds. It's not the only way. And then you said something really awesome. You said that there's a duality in the Sephira themselves. There's like a number of things that exist in the Sephira. Yeah. So one of the things that I teach that I feel like a lot of Hermetic Kabbalah is missing is a lot of people, when they look to play with tarot and Kabbalah, they want to do path working. So they'll go into a Sephira and think about it and all the associations and all the images and symbols that exist in that Sephira or in that path. And that is totally cool, and people love that. It's called path working, and there's meditations that can be helpful. But you're always going to miss the mark in that way, because if you're meditating on something, you can't go into Chokmah and meditate on like the zodiac, because that's not what Chokmah represents. The zodiac, or it's connected to Chokmah, but Chokmah truly is not. It's starting to go out of duality. So if you're envisioning something, you're in duality. So there's a little bit of a contradiction in the way people work with the tree of life. What I'm interested in, what I like to do, is help people climb this bad boy, but actually get to the place where if you're in Chokmah, it's not because you're imagining its associations and ideas and all of the things connected to it, but you're experiencing that non-dual state that it really is. So that's kind of the difference between like certain types of meditation and mysticism. That said, there is a different context to use Chokmah. So if you wanted to work with, like, let's say Binah, for example. Binah is Saturn. Let's say you are going through some grief, or you're going through an ending of a chapter of your life. You might want to work with Saturn And so you would go to Binah and bring in all the associations of Saturn and the color black and whatever metal it is and incorporate that into a magical practice in order to close a chapter of your life. Or if you want to be rich and famous, you'll go to Chesed, you'll connect with Jupiter and the color blue and violet and all of those associations and bring that into your magic and do that. But that's different than like actually traveling up the tree. So they're kind of two different things.
Now, if you're serious about learning this, if you want to learn deeper mystical philosophy like Kabbalah, if you want to learn tarot, how to read it confidently for yourself and others, how to become a professional reader, or healing, I definitely recommend Tarot Mysticism Academy. It hosts over a dozen courses in all of these different topics, and that's where the real wormhole starts. You can find more information about the school in the link below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next wormhole. Much love.